Boeing used to put Americans on the moon. Now their planes are falling out of the sky, and $51 billion in stock buybacks helped destroy a century of excellence. This video explains how Boeing went from the pride of American engineering to a company struggling to keep planes in the air. We'll break down how financial decisions, management choices, and culture shifts turned one of the most innovative companies in history into a cautionary tale. From the golden era of the 747 and Apollo missions to the disastrous 737 MAX, you'll see how accountants began running a company that should have been led by engineers. By the end, you'll understand why Boeing isn't just a story about planes. It's a warning for America's future, showing what happens when short-term profits replace long-term excellence. Most people think Boeing's problems started with the 737 MAX crashes, but the real story goes decades deeper. It's about mergers, money, and a culture that valued stock prices over safety. Every design choice, every cut to research and development, every boardroom decision built toward disaster, long before the first MAX plane even took off. This isn't just about planes falling out of the sky. It's about how financial engineering can destroy even the greatest companies. The golden era. Boeing wasn't always in trouble. In the 1960s and 70s, Boeing was a symbol of American ingenuity. They built the Saturn V rocket, sending humans to the moon. They created the 747 jumbo jet, the plane that made global travel affordable. Engineers ran the company, and innovation was king. Safety, quality, and technical excellence mattered more than profits. Employees were proud to work there. Boeing wasn't just a company, it was a national icon. Airlines trusted Boeing planes because engineers cared. The public trusted Boeing because they built machines that were strong, reliable, and cutting edge. The culture rewarded problem solving, creativity, and forward thinking. Every plane was tested thoroughly, every new design went through careful checks, and engineers had the final say. Decisions were driven by technical mastery, not by quarterly earnings. Leadership listened to those on the shop floor, valuing insight over hierarchy. Teams collaborated across disciplines, sharing knowledge to solve complex engineering challenges. Every failure was a lesson, and every success reinforced a culture of excellence. Boeing didn't just build airplanes, it built trust in the skies. The McDonnell-Douglas merger, the turning point. In 1997, Boeing merged with McDonnell-Douglas. This should have been a strong combination. Instead, it changed everything. McDonnell-Douglas had a very different culture. They were financially driven, focused on short-term profits and shareholder returns. Boeing engineers found themselves outnumbered and overshadowed by MBAs and accountants. Decision-making shifted from technical excellence to stock prices and quarterly earnings. Engineers' warnings were ignored if they threatened profit margins. This culture clash planted the seeds for later disasters, as innovation and safety slowly took a backseat to money. The merger also created a top-heavy management structure, where executives in offices far from production controlled what happened on the factory floor. Moving headquarters to Chicago. In 2001, Boeing moved its headquarters from Seattle, home of engineers, to Chicago. This wasn't just a geographic move. It symbolized the shift from engineering to finance. Executives were now surrounded by accountants and investors, not engineers who built planes. Decisions were made in boardrooms, not hangars. Planes became financial products. Safety and innovation became secondary to keeping Wall Street happy. The move also hurt morale. Engineers felt their work didn't matter anymore. They lost influence over design decisions, and warnings about safety often went unheard. Company traditions that emphasized craftsmanship and meticulous review began to fade, replaced by metrics and quarterly financial targets. Employees felt a loss of identity. They no longer worked for a company built on innovation, but for one driven by shareholder value. Ultimately, the Chicago move marked the beginning of a long-term shift, where short-term profits began to overshadow long-term engineering excellence. $51 billion in stock buybacks. From 2013 to 2018, Boeing spent $51 billion on stock buybacks. Stock buybacks can make executives and shareholders happy. They boost stock prices. But the money came from somewhere. Cut research, cut safety programs, cut engineering resources. Boeing executives were incentivized to hit short-term financial targets. Meanwhile, engineers were forced to design planes faster, cheaper, and with fewer resources. This created a perfect storm. Planes were rushed, corners were cut, and oversight was weakened. The company's focus on financial engineering now directly threatened the safety of its airplanes. Stock buybacks gave executives big bonuses and shareholders quick profits, but the long-term cost was devastating. The 737 MAX disaster, step by step. The 737 MAX was meant to compete with Airbus's fuel-efficient planes, but instead of designing a safe, reliable aircraft, Boeing cut corners to save money and time. The MCAS system, designed to prevent stalls, was rushed and poorly documented. Pilots were given minimal training on the new system. Safety warnings from engineers were ignored by management. The results were predictable: 2 deadly crashes, hundreds of lives lost, and a worldwide grounding of the 737 MAX fleet. This disaster wasn't a surprise. It was an inevitable consequence of the company's culture and financial priorities. Engineers had warned about the risks. Executives ignored them. Shareholders were happy. Boeing's reputation was destroyed. The 737 MAX disaster showed that when finance controls engineering, human lives can become collateral damage. The broader meaning: America's decline. Boeing isn't just a story about one company. It's a warning for American manufacturing and capitalism. When short-term profits are more important than long-term excellence, innovation suffers, safety suffers, national pride suffers. Other companies are following the same path: cost-cutting, buybacks, and financial engineering over engineering talent. Boeing shows what happens when accountants run engineers' companies. The result: a company that once built rockets and jumbo jets now struggles to keep its planes in the air. What can we learn from Boeing's fall? First and foremost, never prioritize short-term profits over long-term excellence. Cutting corners to boost quarterly results can have catastrophic consequences when safety, quality, and innovation are compromised. Company culture also matters deeply. Organizations must value engineers, scientists, and builders just as much as MBAs and executives. Without respect for technical expertise, critical decisions risk being driven by finance rather than reality. Financial incentives, such as stock buybacks and executive bonuses, can become dangerous when they outweigh commitments to safety, engineering rigor, or innovation. To stay competitive and resilient, companies must invest continuously in engineering, research and development, and manufacturing talent, even when it reduces short-term margins. Boeing's story is tragic, but it also serves as a warning. Companies that neglect these principles are likely to face disasters of their own making, and the consequences extend far beyond balance sheets to human lives. Boeing went from putting Americans on the moon to struggling to deliver planes safely. Financial engineering, stock buybacks, and management decisions destroyed decades of excellence. 2 deadly crashes, $51 billion spent on buybacks, engineers silenced, all because short-term profits outweighed long-term safety and innovation. This isn't just a Boeing story. It's a cautionary tale for every engineering company, every investor, and every policymaker in America. Boeing's decline shows how a golden-era engineering company can be destroyed by culture shifts, mergers, financial engineering, and short-term thinking. From McDonnell Douglas to Chicago HQ to $51 billion in stock buybacks, every decision prioritized money over safety. The 737 MAX crisis was predictable and preventable, proving that long-term excellence can't survive when accountants run the company. And that's why Boeing is no longer the symbol of American engineering, and why the lesson goes far beyond airplanes.